Joe spends the night at my place, something he rarely ever does anymore these days. As soon as we reach the front door of the Blue Cottage, he usually makes his excuses and orders a cab back to Margate. But tonight, something has shifted, and a light has been turned on in my brain. Joe can feel it, and he thinks that tonight might be the night when I finally confide in him. But I'm not sure I'm ready for a full confession yet. Almost half a century on, I'm still not completely ready. As if to prepare the ground, Joe plugs his smartphone into the stereo system he gave me as a Christmas present a few years ago, which I rarely ever use. Soon, the familiar sight-folk sounds of a compilation he often plays fill the room, bringing with them these images he's intending to extract from my brain. The sound of the fiddle, in particular, is painful to my ears, although no one will ever play this instrument the way William did, mixing classical, folk, jazz, and avant-garde into a unique blend. Still, combined with drums and electric guitars, the sound of a fiddle never fails to remind me of William. William who, following his rejection from the Royal Academy of Music, decided to use the term fiddle rather than violin to talk about this instrument, thereby linking it to a more popular form of music. Joe, please, turn it off. Those are the first words I pronounced today, ever since Joe and I met by the Reculver Towers over this afternoon. Stunned, Joe obeys my orders without trying to argue that the silence in my house is deafening, one of his favourite phrases. Give me a few days and I'll tell you everything you want to know. It might not be straightforward, because my memories are a little blurred and nothing will ever be particularly clear in my head again, but I'll try. You'll have to be patient though. Joe cannot believe his ears, nor can I believe what I just said. It's alright, Sam, take all the time you need. I've waited 45 years for this, I can wait a few days longer. Why this sudden, unexpected connection with the outside world? Is it really because these sculptures on the beach reminded me of Signor Geordie's villa? And because of the words of a French artist I know virtually nothing about 100 years ago? I am not dead, I am in Herne Bay. Or is it because of this kid working on the statues, who reminded me of Alfie? As soon as Joe retreats to the spare room for the night, I browse through the diary again. Guy's diary. Never in all these years have I uttered his name out loud. He lives in my head like the rest of my companions, but I have never pronounced his name in front of anyone since coming back to Herne Bay. Not even Joe. I was certain I would dream of Signor Geordie's villa that night, as I always do when I find myself in a state of turmoil. The psychiatrist Joe encouraged me to see, at a time when I was unable to step out of my house, and Joe abandoned his life to come to my rescue, told me that I associate this place with a safe haven, and that's the reason why the villa appears in my dreams every time I feel unsettled. I could not disagree more. I know what I associated, and what I still associate Signor Geordie's villa with: a prison. But then again, I did not give the psychiatrist the whole picture about what happened, either in the house in Montolia or in Signor Geordie's villa in Cadaqués. Instead of the Mediterranean Sea by Signor Geordie's villa, it was another sea that appeared to me in my dreams last night. My sea, the Channel. I did not view it with my adult eyes, but rather as I used to as a teenager. Something that conjured up a world of possibilities on the other side of the waters. In the dream, William and Joe were by my side, the former holding onto his violin, and the latter writing down ideas in his notebook. William had already planned for his entire life to be devoted to music, and Joe wanted to become a writer. I guess their wishes were granted in a way. As for me, all I desired was to explore the world and experience all there was to experience. To me, music and art were only a means to an end, a way to escape Herne Bay, and meet people who would help me transform my boring life into a never-ending fantasy, when for my friends, it was the ultimate aim. My dream last night revolved around the day when we wrote our first song, when I was 16 years old. It was the three of us, William, Joe and I, who did the groundwork that day. Alfie only joined us the following day to add his jazz lines and give us pointers for the final arrangement. William came up with a riff borrowed from an old Irish tune, and Joe wrote about a French girl he met the night before at the dance. A snooty little cow who looked down on him because his French was not up to her standards. Not that she spoke particularly good English. The song was about showing her who he really was and what he was capable of, eventually turning her down when she came begging after he'd made a name for himself in the world. That day, Joe decided to sing his own words for the first time, and I guess this is what made things finally come together. We never recorded this first version of the song, written the day after the World Cup final, only a revised, hybrid arrangement with William's original riff and Joe's reworked lyrics, and an additional melody I composed on the guitar to complement Alfie's jazz piano lines. I also recorded the bass guitar because I'd suddenly taken a liking to this instrument after having listened to countless jazz bands with Alfie. And some guy William had met at art college played the drums on the demo, and this was unquestionably the weakest part. The guy in question was not interested in joining our project, and so we parted ways straight after the recording. I wonder what happened to him. Actually, that's a lie. I don't really care. It's just something normal people say about friends and acquaintances they've lost touch with. I'd almost forgotten that it was the three of us to start with. William, Joe and I. Because Alfie and then Gaius took over musically. And eventually, Gaius pushed Joe out of the band. I'd almost disregarded the role Joe played in our story, because he did not accompany us to France. And, after a couple of months at Signor Geordie's house, I stopped associating him with the events that led us to this house in Montoya in May 1968. In the dream, events unfolded just as they had that day when I was 16 years old. Inspiration had finally struck, because we'd not slept much the previous night, having spent most of the previous hours being sick as a result of too much drinking to celebrate England's victory in the World Cup. I doubt William would have thought of using this old Irish tune he often played as a practice exercise, had it not been for the terrible hangover. The entire country was hungover that day. And I'm not sure I would have added my electric guitar to an additional piece if I'd not let my guard down because of a spectacular headache. It was not so common, back then, to mix folk with rock, and I very much doubt the guys from Fairport Convention had thought of it yet. And even if they had, no one knew about it. We had played some parts, and Joe clapped in admiration, something he would not normally do when we came up with a new idea. In turn, he had felt inspired, and used his disastrous experience the previous night to write something that would fit in with our music. And then, the desire had been overwhelming, and Joe had decided to sing his own words, which in turn had resulted in our very first song. By the time we finished this first draft of our song that afternoon, we should have returned home for tea, but we were far too excited to go home. And so we grabbed a portion of fish and chips and shared it on the beach, while watching the coming of the high tide. We still have 4 weeks of summer holiday ahead of us to write our songs, and that night, we promised each other we would compose another 3 songs in total, and get them recorded at half term. We needed to start saving now, and think of taking weekend jobs even maybe. We were certain we were onto something. Although quite what this something would turn out to be, we had no idea. I'll tell you what, I'll get started from what I know, and then you can tell me what happened after you guys left me behind in London. What about that? Would that help? Last night, Joe saw an opening, and he's not going to give up now. I understand his excitement, but he should know me better by now. Pushing me to do things I'm not ready for has never been the way forward with me. If anything, it stops me in my tracks, rather than giving me an incentive to do whatever has been asked of me. I gave him my word, and I will keep my promise. But I need to be alone for a few days first. I need to read Gaius' diary again. I need to find in there some answers I did not find during the 100 or so previous readings. Joe might have to wait just a little longer. I send Joe back home and decide to spend the rest of the day on the beach, watching the art students hard at work on the statues for the Marcel Duchamp Festival, while reading Gaius' diary. The words are familiar, but they do not register in my brain today, so I just sit there, watching the world go by. Just like in the dream last night, my mind wanders back to my teenage years. Joe and I riding our bikes on the coastal path between Herne Bay and the Reculver Towers, blown away by wind gusts, leaving our bikes unattended on the grass at Bishopston Glen and climbing down to our favourite spot, a natural cave in the cliff, and talking about the people who'd pissed us off during the school week at Cycling Langton. Joe would tell me about his latest crush, and I would remain silent, wondering when the time would finally come for me to also be able to confide in him about someone I had feelings for. After an hour or two in the cave, we would jump back on our bikes and eventually reach the Reculvert's house, where we would collapse on the grass, staring at the sky and the clouds above, and hoping that the rain would not come before we managed to get back to Herne Bay. William would rarely join us on our adventures, preferring to remain at home and practice the violin instead. On the rare days when he tagged along, he would pack his violin in a rucksack and continue practicing on the way to the Reculvert's house. In the cave particularly, as he found its acoustics unusual, almost otherworldly. In a way, he was experimenting with the music of the cosmos, long before we met Gaius. Obviously, there is nothing in Gaius' diary about this part of the story, for our paths had not yet crossed. And maybe this is where my narration should begin. The first sparkle in Herne Bay, with Joe and William. The moment that changed the course of destiny. Joe has been waiting for these revelations all these years, and I cannot possibly let him down with a half-baked story. So I may as well give him the whole picture, at least as I interpreted it.